Thank you. First thing I want to do is basically I want to create what in Buddhism they call the Vajra spot. The Vajra spot is the place where heaven and earth are joined. And I want to put it right there. Okay? And I need your help in doing that. I need you all to basically say, okay, here we are over. Here I am over here with my sort of ego identity separate from you all. Here I am with maybe all my hopes and fears about what may happen with this presentation. Here I am in this god-awful room, being like, ah. And take all these sort of mini complaints and sense of separations and abandon them all in here when I step into this place of wholeness in the center. Are you all ready? Yeah. Okay, so hold that intention for me. Are you ready? So now I'm in the Vajra spot. And the Vajra spot comes from the word... Vajra basically means lightning bolt. The Vajrayana lineage is the culmination of the Hinayana and Mahayana lineages in Tibetan Buddhism. And it's known as a non-dual lineage, which is basically about connecting heaven and earth. And what is creativity? What is creativity? Just take a moment in your mind to picture what this thing is. I mean, it's huge. Okay? So the first definition I want to offer of creativity is what I call the ground of creativity. And that is that whatever it is, that organizing force that has taken our universe from 14 billion years ago as a singularity and converted it to this somehow. And we've only been on the scene for about 150,000 years. And that's kind of miraculous. Okay? So, what Buddhists would call that, they would call that causality. That there's things that are just sort of working and shaping themselves according to the laws of nature. Alright? Now, the ground of creativity, as I define it, is basically made up of dynamism. Everything is always moving. Interdependence. That everything is interrelated. Like the best way of thinking of that is gravity and space-time. That all matter is constantly affecting other matter. It's incredible. And could go on and on about that. And finally, there's mystery. We understand that the universe supposedly started with the Big Bang, but what was beyond that? We have some ideas where this thing called life came from, but we don't really know on some levels. And then finally we have this thing that we wrestle with as human beings, which is conscious self-awareness. That's really the thing that makes us human. That's really the thing that we wrestle with. It's both a tool and it can be a detriment. Okay? So, that is the ground of creativity. Now, stepping outside here again, as human beings, we are wrestling with this thing called ego. And in the modern world, we're wrestling with a particularly difficult and challenging version of ego, which is basically that it's inflated, it's ramped up. Thanks to things like Facebook, where we paste all these photos of ourselves doing awesome things. Thanks to advertisements that say, hey, do this. If you buy this, you'll be this cool. And all sorts of other things. We're basically wrestling with ourselves on that level. And creativity is a way by which we get out of that. So once we start to talk about human creativity, I have a very simple definition for it. Human creativity is 1, connecting with the world. 2, affecting the world in a meaningful way. And the third aspect is kind of in the space in between. So let's explore those different places. Now remember, here's the Vajra spot, the place of wholeness, okay? I'm going to step over here for a second. This is connecting with the world. This is connecting with the world, okay? In creativity, this is the experience of insight. This is the experience of a light going up on top of your head. It's the experience of something coming to you. The way that I define this came from William James's Varieties of Religious Experience. Actually looking at this section on mysticism. That experience of like, aha, no matter what it is, that quasi-religious experience is the experience of insight. Okay? It's about opening up. It's actually about dying. Something in the ego dies for a moment so that something new can come in. Okay? This is the experience of insight. This is the passive aspect of creativity. And there's language for all these things. In science, this is called divergent thinking, a type of thought that diverges from normal thought patterns. In art, you could call this artistic expression, or actually artistic inspiration. And at the level of religion, and specifically to Buddhism, they call this wisdom. Wisdom is an uncovering of your natural awareness that is always already available. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Now let's go to the opposite over here. Over here, this is called manifestation. This is the world we're living in right now, where we're mostly relating with our phenomenal ego, our sense of who we are. We have moments of opening, but basically we see ourselves as over here and the world out there. Now the benefit of this in terms of creativity, if we don't have the ability to do this, we're technically schizophrenic. So over here, in order to manifest anything, we need to be able to say, I'm over here, my resources are over there, this person knows that thing about that, and I can ask them, and we start to get into the realm of interdependence. This over here is the realm of the arhat, a person who basically leaves their ego in order to attain nirvana. This is the archetype of the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva who is basically foregoing their enlightenment. They're not doing those experiences all the time for the benefit of all sentient beings. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the Vajrayana, back to the Vajra spot, this place in between. This is a word, a simple. What I call this is very simple on some levels. First of all, let me go over here one sec, just to give you one. Scientific word for this is convergent thinking. This is what coffee does. It focuses your attention on something. Caffeine, right? Next, at the level of art, this is craft. This is all the work you put into whatever it is you do so that you can do it well. And at the level of religion, this is the realm of compassion. This is doing things for the benefit of others. That's the proper spirit for creativity, really. Okay? Now, into the Vajra spot. This is the culmination of creativity. In this place, we're drawing upon both of these worlds, these very different worlds, okay? This is why I call my book The Shoreline of Wonder, because you're drawing upon the ineffable experience of the ocean on some level, shape-shifting, deep, incredibly vast, changing every day. And over here, the sense of knowing what you're doing, that sense of continuity that defines you as different from other people. Does that make sense? So in here, between the ineffable experiences of insight and the things that we need to define to do the project, we find imagination. In the Sufi tradition, they talk about imagination being like the isthmus that connects the known and unknown worlds. We discover wonder between the sense of absolute truth over here and this flexibility that we need in order to actually get it into the world. Does that make sense? Okay. Next thing that we have is that we basically have a sense over here. These tend to be short experiences, brief moments, like micro instances, up to few minutes, maybe hours, sometimes days. But in order to bring things into the world, it takes time, as you know. You get the idea, but to realize it, this is the enduring portion. So in the middle here we have patience. Patience. If you're impatient when you're trying to create, you run up against all sorts of obstacles. And the trick is, some of those obstacles are actually there to help you with your project. Does that make sense? Yes. Ego hates that. Yes. It hates that. Okay? So next, between the passive experience of something coming to us and the active portion of bringing it into the world, we discover flow, which Doug talked so beautifully about in his talk about climbers. I was a climber too. My book opens up in Yosemite, way high on a mountain, because that's a place where people have a lot of flow. You're using your body and concentrating in an incredible way. In Taoism, they call this Wu Wei, actionless non-doing. You're not quite sure if you're spending energy or gaining energy. It's an amazing place to be, and you all know it. You've all been there, okay? And finally, between the individual and the collective, we have something that's incredibly important in order to create, and that is love. Okay? Love is basically this thing that we practice. We practice entering back into the world as seeing it as miraculous and appreciating it for as it is. It doesn't mean we like the world all the time. I do not like this room. I don't like it. But I love that I have the opportunity to be with you all in here. That's the attitude of love. It doesn't mean repressing things and being like, I can't say that. It was at the Gabor Mate talk. He said, don't suppress things. You may feel hatred. You may feel rage. Do it in the space of love. Frame it within the context of love. Okay? So this is creativity. And the language of this here, in science, it's called paradox. I mean, what happening is something is converging and diverging at the same time. It's a paradox. I'm going to go up to the religious portion of it. Here we have non-duality. Okay, non-duality is basically, or we could call it wisdom and compassion inseparable. They're happening at the same time. And there's a level of art, which is in the convergence of everything, of heaven and earth, passive and active, and there's a way of life full of imagination, flow, wonder, patience, all of these elements. We find self-expression, artistic expression. You see? So this is creativity. All right. Gotta go check.